Hello everyone! Beidou and Diona will be the two 4-star characters out of the 7 older characters that are getting buffed with the release of Genshin patch Luna 8, complementing the simultaneous introduction of Sandrone and the new stellar conduct reaction in preparation for snezhnaya. Since Beidou and Diona are 4 stars, not too much attention has been given to their new buffs as they didn't receive that many changes to their kits, but if you do happen to have them at C6, their new buffs allow them to be decent starting supports for the new stellar conduct team archetype. So in this brief guide, I will be covering everything you need to know about the newly buffed Beidou and Diona, including what kit changes they received, the best ways to build them, their potential best teams, and how strong they look in the meta both currently and in the future with snezhnaya's release. The new stellar conduct reaction is a core part of the character buffs. I will show a quick summary of everything that is involved with the new reaction here, but the main thing I want to emphasize in relation to the character buffs is that for everyone other than Mizuki, the majority of the new character buffs are only enabled when they are in the radiant stellar conduct state, which requires you to be in a pole star field created by triggering stellar conduct. And on the patch the buffs are being introduced, the only character that can enable stellar conduct for the team is Sandrone. Thus, in patch Luna 8, you must have Sandrone on the team in order to access the majority of the character buffs for the older units. But in the future, there will be new characters that you can use, potentially including Cryo Traveler, that can enable the use of stellar conduct. Now, let's go over the buffs the two 4-star characters received, starting with Beidou. Beidou's original kit was very simple. Her skill can be held for a shield on Beidou herself, but generally the skill was just used for damage, and had a parry mechanic which you ideally activated. And her burst enabled the on-field character to fire lightning discharges when they hit enemies with normal or charge attacks, thus providing off-field electro, and being especially effective in AoE. And with C1, Beidou's burst also provided the team a shield. Beidou still does all of these same things post-buffs, she just got 2 small additional changes. First, when you hold down Beidou's elemental skill, it will accumulate stacks the longer you hold it, and once you release it, depending on how long you held down her skill, the skill will deal additional damage, regenerate extra energy, and reduce its own cooldown. To be honest, this change isn't that relevant since you normally just want to use Beidou's skill for energy particles, burst, then swap out quickly in most of her teams, so the actual significant buff is to her C6. Originally, it just reduced nearby enemies' electro res by 15% while her burst was active, but now, while you are in a pole star field in stellar conduct teams, on top of the 15% electro res shred, you will also get 15% cryo res shred and 200 EM for the active character during the duration of Beidou's burst, giving her more supportive capabilities in stellar conduct teams. The res shred range on Beidou C6 was also reportedly increased to 5 meters or 2 abyss tiles. Talent leveling priority for Beidou is the same as before, burst over skill. Now for Diona, her original kit was just skill gives a shield, giving a stronger shield if you held down her skill, and her burst throughout a field that dealt continuous cryo damage to enemies and healed party members within its AoE. Similar to how Beidou got an improvement to her skill and burst, Diona's 2 main buffs improves her skill and her burst. When Diona uses her skill now, she will additionally fire cryo coordinated attacks whenever the party triggers super conduct or stellar conduct reactions. These attacks have a cooldown of 3.5 seconds and don't generate additional energy particles, nor will they generate extra shields. These attacks only serve to give Diona better off-field cryo application, which is especially helpful for stellar conduct teams. In terms of buffs to Diona's burst, the buff is tied to her C6 just like Beidou's. It still gives the extra healing bonus and elemental mastery depending on the HP of the character when they're in the burst, but now C6 gives Diona an extra 25% max HP, and while in a pole star field in stellar conduct teams, characters in Diona's burst will deal 40% increased super conduct and stellar conduct damage. Useful buffs for the new stellar conduct team archetype. Builds wise, not much has really changed for both the 4 stars in their new stellar conduct teams. In terms of weapons for Beidou, yes, you can technically use any damage oriented claymore, but she doesn't do that much damage, especially in single target where her lightning hits from her burst don't bounce. Yai does way more damage than her in stellar conduct teams, and even Fischl looks to deal more damage. Because of her generally lower personal damage, and the fact that Beidou's burst is extremely important to have up every rotation so she can buff the team, the best claymore I would recommend using is Favonius Greatsword. Gives a ton of energy recharge for her, and the extra particles can be valuable for the team. For Beidou's artifacts, since she bursts every rotation, she's a good holder of 4-piece noblesse for the team attack buff. If there happens to be another character on the team already using 4-piece noblesse, then you can use 4-piece emblem. And in the future, if there is a stellar related support set releasing in snezhnaya that Beidou can take advantage of, she could be a holder of it depending on the team. For main stats, use energy recharge or attack hourglass, electro damage goblet, and crit likely crit rate circlet. Pretty standard. Substats, you want energy recharge, crit, and attack. And as for recommended energy requirements, I highly recommend getting as much as you can so you can burst every rotation consistently, for example like 200 plus ER. Now for Diona, her best weapon choice will be the same as Beidou's, and that is Favonius Bow. Again, Diona's buffs are in her burst, so the energy recharge substat is helpful for Diona to burst every rotation, and the extra particles will greatly benefit the team by lowering their ER requirements. For artifacts, just like Beidou, because Diona uses her burst every rotation for the stellar conduct team buffs, she's a good user of 4-piece noblesse for the team attack buff. Now if there already is a noblesse user on the team, Diona can make use of 4-piece tenacity of the Melolith because her new buffs gave her new consistent off-field cryo attacks in her skill. However, tenacity of the Melolith's attack buff has a 3-second duration after a skill hit, and Diona's new off-field cryo coordinated attacks have a cooldown of 3.5 seconds. Thus, there will be some buff downtime if Diona uses 4-piece tenacity of the Melolith, so preferably she uses 4-piece noblesse. And again, if there is a stellar related support set releasing in snezhnaya that Diona can take advantage of, she could be a holder of it depending on the team. For main stats, Diona wants energy recharge hourglass or HP hourglass, HP goblet, then crit rate circlet for Favonius procs. But if you really want extra sustain, either with stronger heals or shields, you can consider healing bonus or HP circlet. For substats, prioritize energy recharge, crit rate for Favonius procs, and HP for sustain. And just like for Beidou, for Diona's recommended ER requirements, I highly recommend getting as much as you can, for example like 200 plus ER. Lastly, for Beidou's and Diona's new best teams, they both simply fulfill their role of off-field supports in stellar conduct teams, with Beidou being an option for off-field electro, and Diona being an option for off-field cryo in teams like ones revolving around Sandrone, Wriothesley, or Sino. Since Beidou and Diona both provide a shield, they can be very helpful for the main carry for the extra resistance to interruption, but at least in terms of damage, Yai and Chi-Chi, who are also getting buffed for stellar conduct teams, fulfill the same off-field role as Beidou and Diona, but they provide more damage. So generally, if you have the 5 stars, they are better options than the 4 stars. But if you don't have Yai or Chi-Chi available, and you have Beidou or Diona as C6, they work fine as support alternatives for stellar conduct teams and can give more gameplay comfort with their shields. Overall, the buffs that the 2 4 stars are getting are decent and make them significantly more useful than before in specifically the stellar conduct niche. However, they aren't the most impactful buffs for the overall meta because 1, both of them need their C6 to actually provide a majority of their value in stellar conduct teams. If you don't have their C6, they don't really do anything. And 2, if you have the 5-star stellar conduct off-fielders in patch Luna 8, Yai and Chi-Chi, they are kinda just better versions of Beidou and Diona. And when inevitable new stellar supports released in snezhnaya, both of the 4 stars are the first units looking to get replaced if you are still using them. But regardless, if you do have Beidou and Diona as C6, they serve their purpose as 4-star support alternatives for stellar conduct teams. That's everything I wanted to cover about the newly buffed Beidou and Diona. If you enjoyed this quick and concise guide, consider liking the video or sub to the channel so you don't miss out on similar guide videos in the future. Feel free to leave any of your thoughts in the comments, and with that, I hope you all have a wonderful day.